So I recently posted a long-ish video on how I made this simple L bracket to attach to the side of my Blackmagic Micro Converters for easier mounting of these converters on things like camera tripods when I need to convert my camera's HDMI signal over to SDI. But of course, after I made that video and spent time in the garage cutting down the cheap but oversized original L bracket with an angle grinder, I then found these little pre-made L brackets at Home Depot, and they're called inside corner braces, and these are the 2-inch version, and they're mostly used for, carpentry work or obviously mounting on the inside of two pieces of material that meet at a right angle to provide a stronger connection at that point. But this is probably a much quicker and cheaper option that won't require cutting metal because these braces are almost perfectly sized for the Blackmagic Micro Converters. However, you will still probably need a drill to make some new holes where they need to go, because if we look at this little inside corner brace, they have two holes which are already beveled just like the pre-drilled holes on the Blackmagic Micro Converter. And very oddly, or luckily enough, if you set the converter down on a flat surface and then also just set the corner brace down next to the converter, this pre-drilled hole in the bracket lines up perfectly at the right height with the bottom of the bracket already lined up with the bottom of the converter, and that hole still lines up. But as you can see, only one of the holes lines up horizontally, so you will still have to drill a second hole. But buying these little inside corner braces will save you a lot of time in the garage or building a 3D model and 3D printing it. Just get a 4-pack of these 2-inch inside corner braces, mark a spot for a new second hole in the brace, and I did this the same way as I did my other brackets by just taking all 4 screws out of the converter and removing the top case, setting the bracket and the top case next to each other and just taping them together and marking the second hole from inside the converter's top cover, and then just drill a new hole there, bevel that hole if you want, and then either use the M3 flathead screw that came with the Blackmagic converter, which is still long enough to go through the new beveled hole on the corner brace and still make it through the converter cover and into the threads on the converter, and it seems to tighten up fairly well. But if you need a bit longer of a screw, get M3 bolts with a 0.5 thread pitch and between 4 to 6 millimeters maximum so that your new screws don't hit anything inside the converter. And that solves connecting the corner brace to the converter, but we still need a way to mount this to something else. And typically with camera equipment, we'll be using 1/4-20 screws or bolts to do that, because most camera equipment, tripods, etc., and other holes and threads on things like cheese plates or clamps are either 1/4-20 or 3/8-16. And I typically use 1/4-20 bolts for mounting these types of small items. And even though this corner brace has 2 more pre-drilled holes on the other section, they are too small for a 1/4-20 screw to pass through, so you'll need to widen them. Or if you're OCD like me and you want your mounting holes centered, then you'll need to drill a new hole. So here I did that, and I didn't bother beveling this hole because it's really just going to have a 1/4-20 screw that has a flat underside of that screw, so it sits flush against the plate. But after that, and with only a drill and a screwdriver, this makes a very quick method for adding a mounting bracket to your Blackmagic Micro Converters. Now for me, the corners of this bracket are a bit sharp, but those can be easily filed down in a few seconds to make them more smooth and less likely to cut or scratch you. So if you're more of a hands-on type person that likes to cut things with angle grinders and watch some sparks fly, I have another video on this subject. I'll link to it below. But if you want to save some time, get these 2-inch inside corner braces and a drill probably, and go mount your stuff a bit more securely. All right, that's it. Later.